If an energy intensive company is thinking about making the switch to renewables, what do they need to do about this, and what effect would this have on their current operations?
If they're thinking about making a switch and they haven't gone through the process of building a robust business case that can be tested across the various functions of the business, and that will require some technical optimization, some operational input. Also need to understand what's possible from the approval/sustainability space. There's a legal, there's a commercial, and there's a finance. Now that all needs to be bundled into a business case that everybody agrees with the core assumptions, and it delivers what the business needs from a cost of power, reliability of power, and overall being able to reduce emissions. What I think will be surprising for many is that they are able to get a lower cost, more reliable power supply by embedding renewable energy into their overall power supply. So the impact on operations, I think in many cases will be an improvement, and part of it will be this ability to be able to have reliable, resilient power. In Australia at the moment, we're going through a disruption with our coal-fired power generators. They are becoming sub-economic and they're starting to switch out. And as they switch out, that'll create some fragility in our overall network, and that starts to create some risk on reliability for some of the bigger energy intensive users. So I think the way you manage that risk as you go forward, I think it will start to cost more for the reliability resilience piece. So starting today to understand what's possible from your own perspective from a renewables business case will help you actually manage this volatility that is going to be coming as we go through this transition through our networks. And I think the impact on operations by starting earlier and being prepared for when this volatility and potential lack of reliability, which we've been very lucky in Australia for a long period of time to have pretty good surety of power, I think that's at risk in the next decade. And so I think not doing it is actually a higher risk to your operations than staying on the grid and just going with the status quo.
So it sounds like there's a lower risk coming potentially with the options that are available with renewable energy. Now, lots of people are talking about power purchase agreements at the moment. Now, do you see these as the best option for organisations to require renewable energy, or you've got other options out there?
Look, I see it as one option, definitely. I think one thing that needs to be understood, and when you build the business case to understand what your various different options are and what's possible, a PPA is definitely an option that should be examined and looked at. The other around it we would call a on-site boot, or an on-site build, own and operate and transfer. In some instances is more compelling because it's sitting on your own land. It gets optimized to your own load profile. So you find that the technical specifications that come out of doing something that is bespoke and suitable for what your load profile is, you can get some benefits out of that as opposed to getting something which is more generic. And then finally, by being able to do it on your own site, it creates the opportunity to potentially repurpose your site. So beyond the operations of your site, you can start to think about, okay, if I'm a miner or a chemical or industrial business and I've got a finite amount of time on the operations of my site, there's potential to repurpose that to an energy precinct, which becomes part of the distributed energy resource maps that are being promoted throughout Australia across all the various different networks we have. So they can be part of the solution to the energy transition into the future, and they can underwrite that by actually doing it on their own demand today. So PPAs are absolutely something that should be examined, but they're definitely not the only option.
What questions should large organisations ask themselves if or when they're looking to contract energy?
Needing to understand what their base case is today. We often find having an understanding of the all-in cost of their energy today. Sometimes it's broken down in various different silos. I've learnt in the last probably specifically 3 years is how complex those commercial contracts from an electricity perspective supply are. When businesses think about what questions they should ask, they really do need to have a clarity around what is their baseline today of their all-in costs of providing the energy for their operations. From that, they can then start to understand what can we do to potentially reduce the cost that is also going to deliver us a lower emissions and provide us with the stability or reliability that we need for power. So I think it comes across those three categories: cost, reliability, and emissions reduction potential. But to be able to ask those questions and get an answer that's going to provide some insight, you need to understand, where do I sit today from a baseline perspective? And I don't think that's always well understood around cost, reliability, and emissions profile. Now, obviously, those three macro buckets of questions cascade down into a whole bunch of other specific ones, but they're the three big ones you need to ask.
Thank you very much for your time, Peter.